Hey everyone, we're at Techstrong Gang at RSA conference. And do we have a new Ministry of Truth in the U.S. government? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi everyone, it's Alan Schimmel and we are at RSA Conference 2025. We're filming this on Wednesday. You're watching it on Thursday. But it's been a great 2 days, well, 3 days actually now of RSA Conference. Everything you expect in a good RSA conference. Tons of learning, great networking, a lot of people, a lot of crowds, a lot of news, a lot of security reports. And of course, what would an RSA conference be without having some government officials talking to us about what the role of government is in the cybersecurity industry? Because of course they know. Let me introduce you to our esteemed panel of gang members here today. Again, joining me to my immediate right, no guitars in his background today, Future VP analyst Mitch Ashley. Hey Mitchell, how are you?
Good. And I have been asked, where's the guitars?
They've asked you, really?
Conference, where's the guitar?
All right, there you go. Some people pay attention.
Yeah.
You having a good conference?
It is. It's been actually really good. A lot of great things, and excited to talk about some of them here.
Absolutely. Sitting to Mitchell's right is the lady from San Jose. She does know the way to San Jose.
Yes, I do. Forward and backwards.
Yeah, but she's also our anchor here at Broadcast Alley this week at RSA Conference, Lisa Martin. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning, Alan. I'm great. I've been having so many great conversations here in Broadcast Alley, learning a ton from great leaders, great insights, and I'm looking forward to day 3.
Me too. I forgot we're not supposed to put our hands on the table, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, we'll slap you.
Hey.
And then finally, across the aisle from me here, he's come down from his perch where he overlooks all that goes on in his domain.
Here we go again. Yes, Alan, I'm here. I'm John.
John Swartz.
Hey, so I was going to tell you, I used to cover this show a long time ago, and it's been a few years. It is so crowded. So I made the mistake of going to the W Hotel bar lobby by about 4 o'clock.
Wow.
Now what they're doing, to get a table, you got to spend $125 an hour to keep the table.
Yeah.
Then I have friends who camped out at the St. Regis. They started at 10:30 for a happy hour that started at 2 o'clock. They literally spent hundreds of dollars to keep their tables. So the economy is helped.
RSA is not cheap.
No.
Oh my gosh!
Expensive to do RSA.
Yeah, people pay big bucks to be here.
But here's an interesting thing. I'm not pointing fingers. But there was a time where my buddy and I
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Oh wow!
spent many an hour at that W bar, but not 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was when we were just getting started with our meetings. We'd usually hit the W bar about 9 or 10 at
That's
night.
a good time to go, but that's
No, it
was-
used to be, that's where the industry
that's
gathered.
where they all go. It's
Right.
ground
It's a
zero.
hotspot. Exactly.
But, you know,
Yep.
generational change from what I hear now, the W bar is actually empty at 9, 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Is that right?
Okay.
They don't hang there anymore.
Interesting. Time
All I
to
all I know is that about 4:30, when I'd
That's
given up,
crowd.
there were 50 people in line to go to the elevators to go to their
Sounds
room.
like where I live in Boca Raton. It's
Yeah.
early bird time.
So it's the aging of RSA.
Discount dinner.
Could
Right,
be.
see, you just were there a lot of Lexuses lined up outside? Or?
There were some Teslas probably too,
Oh,
but
and
let's
some
not go. Well, we'll go down that alley anyway in our first segment. I imagine.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Anyway, John, you were doing a panel.
I am going to
Today, or-
I'm going to do one today. Through some horrible mistake, it's been granted a keynote status,
Beautiful.
which is good and bad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be doing it later in the afternoon. It's going to be a bunch of VCs, including your friend who you mentioned.
Shensi Wang.
She's very animated, so she'll be on it.
great
It'll be about
person.
15 minutes. Yeah, look forward to it. Night Dragon is sponsoring, so Dave DeWald is helping
Well,
organizing it.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Not
Very
surprising. Yeah, exactly. That's their bailiwick. But
Yeah,
that's
well, no, the connection between Chensi and Dave
okay.
goes back.
Okay.
a while.
So you know,
I know
more than
Dave
do.
as well.
Okay. Yeah, I've known him off and on for years, so
Yeah.
it should be fun.
Great.
but
Should be
yeah,
good
busy
stuff.
day.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kick things off today RSA is known typically year in and year out. There was a very strong connection between the federal government and the RSA conference. All kidding aside, Mitchell and I have been coming to RSA since 2002. Remember our friend Tony Sager?
I do remember Tony.
Tony led, I think it was the red team effort at NSA.
Okay.
And there was always an NSA booth on the show floor where you could go apply to work for the NSA.
InfraGard meetings, all things kind of kicked off and happened.
There is an FBI booth today. There's a very different FBI than there was then. And we always had keynote representation by high government officials. Usually there's always a general.
H.R. McFarlane has an event this week here
Really?
that I'm going to try to stop by. I think it involves some sort of book or self-promotion. But I was going to mention, you guys probably, back in the early 2000s, Richard Clark would be
I
here
know
every
Richard.
we used to meet every year with
Richard,
him.
What a person.
They had the head of the Secret Service. I remember moderating a panel with that individual through BSA.
It was
always-
a big deal when he came. It was
Richard,
Imagine.
Richard
He was
is
the
always
man.
writing a lot of books. Look,
He was
Richard
incredibly.
and Amit, you're on, right? And
Amit,
by
yeah.
the way, there is a memorial for Amit. Well, you're going to see this tomorrow. But 9 o'clock tonight at the top
At the Marriott,
Marquee.
9 to 11,
One
Tenable.
from, Tenable.
Exactly.
And not only Tenable, but his brother Dove, who is a good friend of mine, will be there, and family. And anyway, but Amit and Richard, during the W. Bush administration, really started everything that you see as CISA today and a lot of the critical infrastructure and cybersecurity stuff. It was Richard and Amit who kind of set that course. But anyway, back to the story. Here at RSA, there was always a strong government partnership. Now, initially, when we all started looking at our schedules, there was no NSA. There was no, usually the NSA also would give a presentation.
keynote on
There was no NSA. There was no real government. There was no high government officials. At the last moment, the eminently qualified Secretary of Homeland Security, puppy killer. What's her name?
I knew that was going to come up.
Well, no, it's certain. It's proven.
Proud.
She admits
Oh,
it.
she
admits
read in her books. Yeah.
Shoot
Right,
puppies.
Yeah.
Puppy dessert.
Maybe we should send her to the Orca booth.
Hey, there's a
good.
theme. There's a theme here. We go from Christy Nome to puppies.
No carnage.
On the same show.
Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just laying out the facts.
You're right.
She must hate this show though, because after this first segment, we're going to talk about puppies in the third segment.
Yeah.
So this is the anti.
Yeah.
So I don't.
I've heard that they sequenced them away. They're out of the crowds now. They're in hiding, protective custody.
Yeah.
Protective against violence.
There might have been masked men taking them and sending them up to El Salvador.
Maybe they'll bring them.
They don't have tattoos.
You know what? I
We
could
can't get
never.
it back.
You could never. I was like, I'm thinking about the jobs I used to have in like corporate media. I could never talk about any of this, and I always wanted to. And I was like, I had to.
It's nice having your own thing.
And then I'd get a message like, you
Yes,
need to take
but,
down.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so
Well,
I digress. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Christy Nome, at the last minute was added as a keynote,
Yeah.
and she gave a rousing presentation speech yesterday. John, you wrote
Well,
that.
her infinite wisdom. I mean, that will be the only editorial thing I would do on
infinite-
this. I'm being very facetious.
Okay.
Yes, but anyway, she is advocating a move to work more with the private sector as our government is defunding CISA or cutting it to the bone. And that's basically the gist of what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And
Well, she didn't frame it that way.
no, I'm giving you the sanitized version that like a Wire story would do. But yeah, maybe you should. Yeah, it's a ministry of truth, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what she said is we're going to bring CISA back to its original mission, which was to protect the critical infrastructure of the country, and as a matter of fact, it's not their mission to comment on non-critical infrastructure things such as the
excuse me.
I got
yeah
a cough drop here. No, that's right.
Tickle there.
Yeah.
to comment on whether our elections have been hacked.
So
or
it's basically
anything like that.
encouraging businesses to share information with.
Well, no, but
Elaborate.
here's
Isn't that been kind of a thing?
Isn't that kind of a
yes.
been doing that?
But here's the thing. You know, I spoke about this the first day. It's not RSA conference, it's RSAC conference now. The C stands for community. And they've gone through a whole relaunch. And they are taking it upon themselves as a mission to represent the security community
Yes.
and be a North Star for what we should be doing as a community, as an industry, to protect our governments, to protect our industries, to protect our infrastructure and everything else. I say it couldn't have happened at a better time, because up until this point, our North Star was CISA.
it was.
It was NSA.
And it
was the
yeah.
government agencies, NERC and FERC. Remember,
Yes.
Mitch, we worked with them. And what they're really doing, and again, this is right out of the Trump playbook, they're pulling the U.S. government out of a leadership role. We no longer are leaders. We don't want, let the private industry figure it out. Let the private industry run the prisons. Let the private industry run the schools. Let the private industry run critical infrastructure security. Let the Chinese do this, the Europeans do that. We want Greenland. We are on purpose, like purposefully, abdicating our leadership position in this world. And this is exactly what that is. Now, nature abhors a vacuum. And I do think this is a tremendous opportunity for the RSAC company who puts on this event to take up the mantle, perhaps, and provide a North Star.
That's even an optimistic view, like a realistic view, because in a sense, I would tend to trust the private sector a hell of a lot more than I would trust the
Government.
people in charge of our government right now, especially her.
Today.
Yes. Today, for the next several years.
Yes. Well,
And-
she has no...
She has no
She's a woman who shot puppies and was the governor of
Right.
one of the Dakotas.
Right,
That's her claim to fame.
right.
And she likes to wear a lot of
Why do we
jewelry.
need 2 Dakotas? But anyway.
That's well, because they get extra senators.
Oh,
But here's the thing to remember. CISA has not been around for 30 years. CISA is a relatively, I think it started during maybe W. Bush or Obama.
it's about 15 years old.
Is it Obama or W that started that?
If I remember right. Yeah.
But in that short time, they became a North Star.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
The people who were running CISA, people like Chris Krebs, who, by the way, keynoted our DevSecOps event 3 years ago,
Okay.
4 years ago
Yeah.
during COVID. Chris Krebs, the lady who just recently left there, was it Marianne?
Oh, yeah.
She has a sterling reputation.
These are giants,
So good at what she
giants in this industry who took that mission.
Well, so I want to ask you guys as cybersecurity experts, and you've been doing this for years. You built companies around this area. What are the bad? I mean, I'm thinking of the bad actors. They must be licking their chops, thinking, "Oh wow,
They're too busy to be licking their chops. It's Christmas every day for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well maybe there's
Kind of.
even more to look forward to, more
Right.
gifts."
Yes.
But in a
mean-
sense, they gifted this to them.
I mean, you got Doge leaving stuff wide open when they're
Yeah.
done. So they're rushing in and grabbing what they can there. You've got us abdicating our leadership role in this industry. I mean, look, the EU isn't going anywhere. I'm sure they're going to continue. But, I mean, quite frankly, the U.S. government,
The message.
you see it with
also-
the MITRE database.
It also, yeah, that's another example. It also opens up the government-to-government cooperation issue, or it collapses that. Because now,
Well,
let's
yeah,
say
it calls
the
into
US
question.
remains strong, or Canada, whoever in cybersecurity. Who do they work with in our government to go after the bad guys? Because they're not all sitting here in the U.S.
We could
sitting
call
up
Kash Patel and tell him to go get a judge or two locked up.
Yeah.
The message was interesting, very crafted, pushing CISA back to the basics, back to basics approach, aimed at hardening defenses. Well, you're saying it's Christmas every day for the adversaries.
Yeah.
When their message is, no, this is going to harden the defenses against these adversaries who demonstrated that they have capabilities to to hit critical infrastructure. So the message and the meaning are divergent from what I can understand.
And it implies that we've let off the gas on hardening infrastructure.
Yes.
We have, and I don't think there's no evidence that that's the case. Matter of fact, I think we're more worried about that happening now.
Yeah.
Without a strong leadership role. A question for you, Alan, is do you think I'm not saying this in a bad way, but do you think RSAC has the leadership, has that presence to be able to step in and fill that void? It's not an easy thing to step into, you know.
You know, I feel like the little boy who goes in the room full of horse manure.
There's a pony in there somewhere.
Well, we need a pony.
Yeah.
And so what kind of pony do we want? You can't, to have a private company do it, there's no single vendor. You can have Palo Alto do it, Cisco, IBM.
Yeah.
They have their own agendas. It's akin to open source. You need that foundation, non-for-profit foundation that allows the co-opetition of the entire industry to come together
Which is essential.
to provide that North Star. Who else? I think this is the biggest cyber conference in the world. They want to extend it to, the community and make it an everyday 24/7 thing. I really think they're in the best position to provide an infrastructure to build that kind of industry leadership that we're going to need to replace what we're losing from the federal government.
Well, I have an announcement to make. I have started a petition to nominate Alan Schimmel.
No. I'm already president of my HOA. It's quite enough.
That's as much power as you can handle.
Yeah.
It's like a classic example, like just tearing something down to the studs of a foundation, breaking something that works, and then deciding kind of ad hoc, we're gonna have a collection of folks fill the gap. We don't know how it's going to happen. It's kind of reminds me
at a time when the attack surface is just spreading. There's more and more vectors. There's more software. There's more applications. There's more technology in the hands of the bad actors. The timing, it was just
abominable. Yes. I mean, and this is what they do. We're on the island. We've talked about this. We're alone, and they don't trust. And I'm speaking pejoratively. They don't trust experts.
No.
So that
they don't trust science.
They don't trust science. So in a sense, they've opened this can of worms, and there will be consequences, obviously.
Yeah.
And they'll blame someone else. And this is just the same path we're going to take over and over again.
Yeah.
Until the next one.
I'm going to end this one with Free Chris Krebs. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey everyone, we're back here at RSA conference. It's quiet, it's early when we're recording this. Things really don't kick off for another hour or so, which gives us a chance to kind of reflect. Obviously, as we all knew coming in, one of the big stories this year was going to be AI and security, specifically agentic AI and security. And like everything else I've ever seen come down the pike here at RSA, one has to stop and say, is it worth the hype? Are we getting our money's worth? Is this fluff? John, I know you were at a Palo Alto
event
where AI was front and center.
They had a marathon press conference yesterday. It lasted at least 2 hours, and it was at the Metreon. It was in a movie theater, so they had some theatrics. But in a sense, what they were talking about was the rise of AI agents. They believe it's a real thing, and they also believe it's going to be a real problem. There'll be a lot of blind spots and attack surfaces. So they talked about their AI security platform, which was much ballyhooed. They also had the CEO of Protect AI, who they just acquired, come on stage and explain the importance of what's going on. Meanwhile, I talked with the CEO of ForcePoint, who also announced an AI security platform. So I'm wondering, these are kind of counter moves or anticipated moves to what will happen with AI agents, I guess, Mitch? Is that where we're going?
It's interesting because there's like many topics around AI. There's security of agents and how we protect against that. There's you building AI into your platform and making it better. There was a report, I think Mike Vizard had an article about it. Someone disclosed a vulnerability of bypassing the guardrails in LLMs that are used across all the major foundational LLMs, to basically injecting a JSON file or whatever that kind of skirts the ethical guidelines and what you can and can't do with them. To me, it's all sort of nibbling at the edges. Yeah, okay, yes, we want AI in our products. We want that to get better. We want, new capabilities. Cisco had a great presentation on Wednesday by a couple of their executives talking about how they've elevated and they're trying to take not just bolting on AI, but building it in and trying to, rather than centralize everything in one Splunk, map, to be able to access and use data for AI across tools, including things that aren't their own. They also contributed an LLM, Cisco did, that's focused on security rules and security diagnosis, which is good. I'm waiting, when are we stepping up to really, really addressing AI security up front? We learned in the move to the cloud that pushing it off for 2 years isn't going to work this time around, right? Saying the cloud's not secure, and it's happening, whether we want it to or not, right? So we also learned in COVID time that we can do things in rapid, fast time. We can make decisions. We can get things done when we have to get things done. And hopefully we carry that lesson forward. So what are the rapid advances that we're making? Nobody's talking about secure code being generated by all these tools, right? They're hoping that the LLMs solve it for us, but nobody's really saying, how do we make sure that's secure? Who's testing it? Who's validating it?
Can't count on it to be secure.
No, exactly. And we're kind of in the hopeful land still, I think, of it. And that's just one part of it. So I think, to me, walking out of this year's RSAC is, okay, let's step up, people. What are we really doing? What's the real value AI is delivering for helping us secure what we have, as well as securing AI?
The takeaway from some of these announcements, and I always have these kind of general feelings, is that they're planting a flag to establish themselves as the leader. And then by the third version of what they're doing, they'll probably get it right. So right now they're just creating a framework. I also think IBM and Box announced this partnership around enterprise use of data and safeguarding. And I give props to Box because that's consistently been their messaging through Aaron Levy for years about the importance of data security. So
you bring up a great point, because I'm always going, what's the story here? We were talking yesterday with guests that every company has to have an AI story. How valid is it? But you mentioned the word framework. Is that where we are in the story right now? Is there constructing frameworks? Yeah. And down the road, that story could materialize and actually become executable. Are we cart before the horse?
I don't know if we're up to constructed frameworks yet. I don't even think the cranes have arrived at the construction site.
Okay.
Look, Mitch, to your point, are we out in front of our skis? Hell yes. Hell yes. I mean, I've been coming to RSA a long time. There's always, there's Zero Trust and there's NAC. Back in the day, remember all the NAC companies?
My God, yes. Yeah.
And cloud security and endpoint security, and is antivirus full of crap or not? This is all AI.
XDR,
XDR,
everything, right?
CNAP. I mean, does the promise of AI promise to change the game fundamentally? Absolutely. Is it here today? Probably not. Vis-a-vis the amount of time we talk about it.
Yeah.
But are there concrete kind of baby steps, foundational pilings being driven in that we could build on? Yes. I think as we sit, with hindsight, we'll look at 2025 as the beginning of the AI era. But we're not at the end of the beginning. We're at the beginning of the beginning.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think we have to not assume what we've been doing is going to get us there to this next wave, because
we don't have best practices.
No.
Not even close.
You have evolving.
We have not only a bigger, threat landscape, a tech vector, but you have issues like an MCP server could be used as a way to inject code into an LLM or into an agent. We are at a place where LLMs and agents can rewrite their own prompts. So talk about a way to inject code, right? So these are things we don't do well today in code because it's much more difficult to do. It's easy to do in an AI environment where a prompt can rewrite a prompt, or reasoning LLM can rewrite its own kind of path of how it's going to come up with an answer.
Can I ask you a question? It just doesn't just extend to AI, but just to all technology in the security field. I know it evolves more slowly than the advances in the waves of cloud or AI. Are there like certain incidents that are learning experiences that evolve the security in a specific area? Like, do you have to have some sort of incident or some sort of flaw that is not publicized but is known internally to kind of move into the next step? Does that usually you have to learn from something that's broken?
Definitely the target breaches, we can name the Log4j, there's always a very public thing that gets a lot of attention, that brings more attention to the issue of security of an open source or whatever it might be. Data breaches. I mean, data breaches,
supply chain.
Those are as common as fingernails. I mean, we have this.
You got to fundamentally understand the security industry. Fundamentally, the security industry is a cat and mouse game. You got the good guy, you got Tom and you got Jerry, right? Jerry's the cat. Yes. Tom, the mouse, is a little faster, a little more nimble than Jerry. And he's always out ahead, stealing the cheese. Who stole my cheese? Over the 30 years that I've been involved in security, that's been the MO. We're always in a catch-up mode. We're always one step behind the mice.
So the thing that struck out at me, and I don't think this was in the intention of Palo Alto Networks, so they had a slide they showed with all the potential things that could go wrong across multiple quadrants. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, there is going to be something that they don't quite have their finger on that's going to happen. And they'll learn from it. But I'm just thinking, this is not an all solution.
This is always what it is. The bad guys do something, and then we close that hole down. Then they do something. And it's very hard to anticipate what that next hole is.
But the thing that doesn't work anymore, CFOs, CEOs, executives don't buy the FUD. We've been through the FUD era of,
now they're in the FOMO phase now, right?
Exactly. They're on the other end of it is, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to leverage AI to be competitive, more competitive, make more money, et cetera.
How we're going to do it.
And you people better figure out how to do it.
I'm actually writing I'm so glad you said that because I started writing a story about that concept.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
It is. I mean, they are now, they're making bets that we're going to make advancements in the business, benefits to the business.
Yeah.
Actually, I led a workshop yesterday, an executive CISO workshop.
And I heard it went very well, by the way.
It went extremely well, not because of me, but because the people we had there were phenomenal.
It was because it was a Techstrong event.
Well, that's true. The branding did help.
Yeah.
So, and one of the contributors, it was a Chatham House rule, so I can't attribute it to people, but one of the contributors said a pivotal point in their career, their security career, was when they made this fabulous presentation to the CEO, had all their data, here's what the threats are, and here's what we have to do to fix it and all that. And the CEO said, thank you very much, project denied.
Whoa.
We walked away and like, WTF, I thought I had a really compelling story here. But what did I do wrong? And the CEO said, there's nothing in there about how this is going to help my business. Help us be more competitive. I know we have to protect it. That's all FUD. I don't care about that. And we're at that. We live that now.
No, we lived through that.
They're not going to buy the FUD.
I would say that's not, here's if you look at my timeline, I think, Mitchell, when you and I were at Still Secured, that was, let's say, from 2001 through 2008, something like that. That very much was the case.
Yeah.
I think sometime around 2012, 2015, CISOs learned to talk business. That guy who got shut down.
Yeah, exactly. That's
learned, hey, next time I do a presentation, I'm going to make it about the bottom line.
The business.
Yes.
All about
and we went on a cycle from about 2012 till about 2024, where we got really good at squeezing budget out of the C-level through FUD or just, newspaper stories or just talking business. And man, security budgets boomed. Boom. We bought stuff, every shiny trinket out there we bought. And about a year or two ago, we started seeing a pushback, a blowback. The exec teams, not the CISOs, right? You know, the CISO came in my business speak, let me tell you why I need to increase the budget by 12% this year. And the C-level says, time out. We're done. We're done. I'm done buying shiny trinkets because for all of the money we're spending on this newest, greatest, latest gadget, widget, my security's not any better.
Right.
Can you show me that you have, you know, in real numbers, dollars and cents, made my security better?
AI is not a feature. AI has to be a benefit. It has to
Yeah.
return something. So
That's
that,
what they
That's a
want to
great
know.
point.
How,
Great value.
show me in the bottom line,
whatever it is we're investing.
right, how is this going to make us, is it going to let us sleep better at
Yeah.
night? Is it going to make us more profitable? Is it going to keep us, can you guarantee me it's going to keep me out of the Times or the Journal as the next
Headline.
story?
Yes.
And now, for whatever reason, and I think we know the reasons, I think a lot of executive teams buy into AI as Aladdin's lamp.
Sure.
I got 3 wishes. Make me secure. Make me do more with less heads.
Yeah.
Not just in security and everything.
Everything.
And make me be a leader using AI, right? And now your 3 wishes are up. And what do you do next? Well, you should have used that last wish to make more wishes. But anyway,
Yeah.
I always thought that watching the movie when I was a kid. Why wouldn't you just use your last wish to make more wishes?
I know. I think every kid thought.
Oh, we
Like
did.
every-
I thought I was.
first
I
five,
thought I was a Sharpie.
I was like that.
I was like, you know.
I'd like 1,000
Anyway,
wishes.
yeah, that's it. Anyway, I think that is the problem in security. So now these CISOs who are very business savvy have learned to be business savvy through, you know, Darwinism, are using AI as that blunt instrument to get budget. And the problem, as you said, Mitch, is it's really hard today to point to, you know, what's the impact here? What's the economic impact? What's the business
Well, I'll go back
impact?
to the great philosopher, the first George Bush,
Poppy.
who borrowed from a Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef?
Where's-
I
Right,
was just going to say, you're going to say, where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
But I do think that's the state of it. Now, as I said, 2-3 years from now, we may look differently and say,
Oh, definitely.
wow, what an
Probably.
impact. What an
Look,
impact.
we'd love it if that happened. Exactly. And I think that's my message is like, I'm not worried about features. I'm worried about outcomes. Why do we
Outcomes.
make a big difference with
Absolutely.
AI?
That's what the story needs to be, but it has to be substantive.
Yeah,
Substantive.
Where's the beef?
Yes.
Where's the beef? We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we have a puppy story. Doesn't include the puppy killer. Stay tuned.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong Gang. We have had a spirited conversation, as you know, and now we're going to be talking about puppy love, not the Donny Osmond song. Puppies here on the show floor. Alan wrote a very stimulating article yesterday. Are puppies the new booth babes? What do you think? Alan, what did you see at Orca Security's booth that caused this really philosophical blog
Yes. So a little background and a mea culpa. Orca's not the only one with animals at their booth.
Correct.
There's another booth that has goats.
Yes, I saw.
And there are some people who make a clear distinction between farm animals and dogs and cats. And it's okay if you're one of the people who do that. I'm good with that, right? But So I'm walking the booth floor as I often do at RSA. I do one day, I'll walk the floor and that's it. And I walk the floor and I come to the Orca booth, and full disclosure, Orca's been a customer of ours. Avi Shula, the co-founder there, is a friend. My good friend Andy Ellis is one of the VCs behind Orca. I have nothing against Orca here. This isn't that thing. But they have a pen with puppies running around, and they let a few people in to actually handle the puppies and everything. And they've got dozens, hundreds of people, you know, around the pen looking in, and the lights of the show and everything else.
And the noise.
And the noise and everything. Now, Mitch and I, back in the day, we would go around and take pictures with booth babes. And then,
It wasn't just about the picture.
Oh,
no,
oh,
I would
tell me
then,
more.
then I had a blog called Still Secure after all these years, which became A Shimmy after all these years. And I would publish those pictures and shame the companies
Good for you.
that were doing it. And Andy Ellis, who I mentioned at Orca, he led the charge, went to the RSA people and said, I'm going to start naming names and calling out.
And these were booth babes who were not just, you know, an attractive person at the
No,
company.
they were hired
They were,
talent.
they would wait at the door and for
Yeah.
somebody to hire them to come just stand
Oh.
and do whatever.
No, they were, you know,
They dressed up in
scantily
space
clad
alien
women
outfits or
or-
whatever
yeah.
they're.
And they knew nothing about security. And-
Right. There's
and
no context.
cast a bad light on women in security
Sure.
in general.
Sure.
So I've always been against that kind of exploitation. And to me, this smacked exploitation.
Yeah.
Now, I did not see any sign. I saw a sign that said this was from
A rescue?
not a rescue. I saw a sign that was from a for-profit company
Okay.
who donates 10% or something of their proceeds to humane societies and rescues. I didn't see anything about adoptions or anything like that. I actually was standing next to Andy at the time, and I asked him, I said, Andy, I'm going to write about this. Andy said, just be fair about it, please. And I was. I wrote, what do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think, right? They were claiming that having puppies around de-stressed people, made them calmer, lowered blood pressure.
Yeah.
At what cost to the dogs, number one? And I think that's very true. If you brought puppies to the office, I bring my dog to my office. It's a great thing, right? You have your dogs
dogs
at your
are
Done
home.
them all the time.
Yeah.
Kai is there. Yeah.
People aren't here at RSA. They're not working generally if they're walking the floor. I don't think that's the stress we're looking for. So I don't buy into that. Let's call it what it is. It's a marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's a marketing
They
gimmick.
tried to draw a parallel with that marketing gimmick to the comfort and peace of mind that
Right.
their security solutions
Again,
deliver.
marketing.
And a puppy's comfort.
Right. It's a
When they're
marketing
biting you with their
gimmick.
razor sharp teeth.
So I put it out there and said, what do you think? A couple of their employees commented on LinkedIn. First, they said that I was trying to equate women with puppies. Bad luck. Like he's going to try to shame me. I was talking about booth babes when this boy was in diapers. Now, I'm not going to mention your name today, but
If he
next
was
time I
even
will.
around.
I said, no, I'm not comparing women to dogs, puppies, except that it's both a case of exploitation.
Yes.
Yes.
And maybe you want to look that word up. He's got an MBA, he claims. He could probably look it up. Then he came back and said, had I taken the time to go into the center of their booth, right? The puppy pen's out here. The center of their booth is there. I would have seen that these puppies are available for adoption and then explain that. Now, I've adopted puppies. In my two puppies. My last one I didn't adopt. Adopting a puppy is not something you make as a snap decision while you're walking the floor of RSA conference. Let's be real.
Yeah.
You don't adopt a puppy because it's cute and you take it home and say, I changed my mind.
Ah.
When you adopt a pet, you adopt it for life.
Life.
Right? It may not be your whole life, but it's their whole life. And so this is not a decision to be taken lightly, and this isn't the place to be doing it. You want to hide behind that with your cheap marketing gimmick, hide behind that. People see it for what it is and it deserves to get called out. Okay. Then this person tried to say, well, where our booth is on the edge of the show floor, so there's not all the bright lights and everything. Hey,
How many
bullshit.
Bullshit. How many thousand people walk through these aisles?
Their booth is right on the edge when you come down the escalator. Stop. So finally, I wrote this person and said, you know what, please stop, because all you're doing is sounding like a whining vendor trying to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not going to end well. I could pretty much guarantee it's not going to end well. So stop. So my advice to you is this. I'm all for marketing. I'm pro marketing. I'm also pro puppies.
Me too.
This isn't the place for this.
You know, when I first thought about this, the more I thought about it, it brought me back, and I'm going to date myself, to the National Lampoon cover, the famous dog cover with the gun held to the dog's head. It says, if you don't buy this magazine, we kill the dog.
Yeah.
And I know I'm being a little extreme. I apologize. I don't mean to.
You don't have to apologize.
Larry the Lobster on.
I try to be polite, but this
No, I know.
smacked me as I felt like I feel the same way about petting zoos sometimes too.
Oh,
I
oh.
feel so
Well, that's
bad.
on out. The petting zoo animals, right?
Yeah, they're just I can't.
So
Anyway.
my thought is like, instead of fighting it, just say, yeah, it was a cheesy marketing thing.
Yeah.
And we were trying it, and maybe it didn't go over well. And if it didn't, we were, hey, we
But
didn't have to offend anybody, but stop by and visit us.
Yeah. Haven't you all seen this before? Because I have. Puppies for adoption. What I saw that Dell did that I thought worked well was they had a pen that was not associated with a vendor. This is a couple Dell worlds ago. And it was service animals that were in training to assist veterans. So it was a good cause. It was like Michael's Angel Paws is the name of the nonprofit. I actually had a dog on my former show, but there was a good cause for it. This seemed to have no context.
No. I think they got called on it and they
got
tried
defensive.
to, and they got defensive. And that's probably the worst thing to do. Lesson 101.
I think what they also probably want is like a TV crew to be walking by to do a cute little feature. Maybe somebody will do that. I mean, there is a certain appeal, but it was a pretty
No,
cynical, it's kind of a
puppies are
cynical
puppies.
play.
Well, where
It
did go from
absolutely
here?
is. But
That's what I
call
wanna
it
know.
what it is.
I
Don't,
think kittens are next.
don't,
Don't think we should try kittens and see if that works.
kittens really don't act well. You don't socialize kittens. like
No.
you do dogs. But socializing dogs, you go to a dog park.
Yeah.
You bring them to a small group of people.
Not crowds and crowds.
Not a 40,000 person conference.
Right.
And look, you try it, you do it. I don't think they'll do it next year.
Oh, no.
I doubt it.
And
They've
if that's
learned
and if that's the lesson that comes out of this, then we
Mission.
mission
Have a
accomplished.
sign. We'd love to have you donate to ASPCA. And
Right.
We don't believe it is that,
Absolutely. Make the
whatever it
Humane
is.
Society
Yes.
thing. Have
Yeah.
pictures of dogs.
Yes.
Or, as I said in my article, let's get an AI-empowered dog
I was
robot
just going to say, get a
Yes.
robo dog.
Yes.
And that would be
and
a
let
very
them
cool thing.
play
for
with it.
dogs.
That would be really cool.
And
Who's also a
appropriate.
security
Yes.
Yes.
guardian.
Robo the security dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
robo-
would be
robo-
cool as
robo.
stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but this is why I come to RSA. I love these kinds of stories. We're going to have to pull the plug on our Techstrong gang. What a great day.
No puppies were harmed in the making of
Oh, nice.
No puppies were
Very
harmed
nice.
or shot in the
Going back to
making
England.
of
The
this
top-selling
Techstrong gang.
magazine
We
cover.
can't speak
in
to
their
her
history.
Naomi's presentation.
Yeah.
Not here.
Hey, if you like what you're seeing here, stay tuned for the rest of Techstrong TV today, because we've got a lot of great stuff coming at you. But until then, on behalf of John and Lisa and Mitch and myself, thanks for joining us. We've got live RSA coverage coming your way all day. I'm Alan Schimmel, and we're out. Hey everyone, we're back here live at RSA conference in Moscone West. Kind of, this time of day, everyone's in sessions. The din dies down so you can hear me. Excuse me. I'm happy to introduce you to my next guest. If you follow Techstrong at all, he's been on a number of times, and he's the CEO of Checkmarks. And if you, again, follow Techstrong, you know we have a very tight relationship with Checkmarks, and we feature them a lot. But let me introduce you to Sandeep Jari.
Yeah.
Did I say
Yeah,
it right?
yeah, Jory, yeah.
Jari. Sandeep Jari. I know Sandeep actually from before Checkmarks and Tricentis, and he has a long track record of making successful companies. Sandeep, welcome to Techstrong TV. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure
We
to
were
have you
here
here.
a
always.
year ago. We were here 2 years ago.
Yes, we were in the same booth.
Yeah.
They're giving you the same booth every year. So Sandeep, it's been about 2 years now with Checkmarks. You've really, I mean, not that it needed a turnaround, don't get me wrong, but you've really left your mark imprint on Checkmarks. I see it in the personnel, I see it in the messaging, I see it in the product direction. I see it in its standing in the market, right? Checkmarks has kind of reclaimed its spot as a leader in the AppSec market, right? But you know how it is. If you're not moving forward, you're dying in this market,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So a lot of things going on. If you wouldn't mind, share with our audience a little bit of what you see as the big things going on with Checkmarks.
So at Checkmarks, 2 years ago, we launched, or 4 years ago, we launched a product called Checkmarks One,
Yes.
which was our cloud-native platform, but was a comprehensive platform. And when we talked 2 years ago, we had just started mainstreaming our customers. Over the last 2 years, we've made incredible progress on Checkmarks One. It now is more than 50% of our installed base, and we are scanning over 450 billion lines of code every month. We have also, it is the most comprehensive platform for AppSec. It has SAST, obviously, SCA, but we've added malicious code, we've added secrets, containers, we have added DAS. So it's really the most comprehensive platform, which is why most of our customers are now moving. We're at more than 50%. By the end of this year, we should be at 70 to 75% of our customers having moved. We'll have some laggards, primarily government agencies and some very large enterprises. But the move to Checkmarks One has been quite incredible. It's one of the fastest moves to a cloud-native platform from an on-prem solution. And like I said, we are scanning literally more than 1 million projects a month, more than 450 billion
Almost
lines
a
of
half a
code.
trillion
Yeah.
lines of code a month.
Yeah, well, half a trillion, which is, rapidly increasing. As of the end of last year, we were doing 350. So literally in one quarter, it's gone from 350 to 450. So it's really accelerating. And the reason for that is Checkmarks One is not only a comprehensive platform, but it's also a very dev-centric platform. So we have IDE plugins all the way, so it really shifts left. And that's what's driving a lot of the increased scanning, because now developers individually can kick off scans as they're writing code. Literally with every pull request they can scan, and that's what's driving it. So that's been a huge focus for us.
To me, it's riding on two very important waves in the market. One is it's a platform. We were talking, we did Techstrong Gang this morning. I don't know if you saw Palo Alto acquired some
Yes.
AI company yesterday. And it's a move towards a platform. You've been in security a long time, as long as I have. You know this. In security, small companies make products. Medium companies buy the small companies, and those products become features.
Yeah.
Bigger companies buy the medium companies, and those products and features get rolled into a platform. Because with a platform, you have an ecosystem. You have the company's entire platform of things that plug in. You have third-party partners, whether it's API or however, that plug in. And it allows you to do things that you can't do at just a product level. It's that platform. So I think it's really, especially when we talk about like the move to cloud native, moving from on-prem, modern application modernization, microservices, a product, a point product, it just doesn't cover it. You need that platform. Secondly, is the idea of who's the user of this platform. I think, unfortunately, the road is littered with security companies who thought they were going to do DevSecOps nirvana by building security products for security people that app dev would use. App dev doesn't use security products.
Yeah.
It's just, that's for security people. I think a lot of companies got hung up on that. One of the nice things about Checkmarx One is it is a security product, but designed for the app dev audience.
Yes.
And that's, it sounds subtle, but it's not subtle. It's a major to do here. So I think that is a big reason for the success.
Yeah, actually, when I joined the company, I met with literally, reached out to 100 of our CISOs, and they raised exactly the 2 points you're saying. We don't want point solutions. It's too noisy. We want a single platform. And two, we want to shift left, move away from only security using it to developers using it. So those were the two design centers of Checkmarx One. And over the last 2 years, we have spent a lot of effort on making sure that the developer experience is incredible. Because developers, at the end of the day, don't care much about security. They don't like security. It's a barrier to their speed of innovation. And therefore, our job as security vendors is to make sure that while we give them the efficacy of having good, deep security, we make it also easier. So we have spent a lot, and one of the things we've announced recently is we have an ASPM built into our platform. But the ASPM initially was targeted at the security professionals who could take feeds from all the engines and then have an ASPM to kind of sort it out and do correlations and exploitability and the like. And what we've done, we just recently announced, is we brought the ASPM capability right into the IDE, again, for the benefit of the developer, so that it makes it very easy for the developer to be able to remediate, to understand the priorities of which vulnerabilities they should be working on, and then be able to remediate. So we've also added AI help capability in the IDE. So when you get a vulnerability, you get told how, one, it explains to you what it is, and it gives you suggestions on how to remediate it. So that's all driven towards making life really easy for the developer. So.
Wonderful. Not everyone watching this is a security person, so let me ask you, ASPM stands for Application
Security Posture Management. So it allows you to take vulnerabilities that are identified by multiple application security engines, static analysis, open source, and the like, and pull it all together in one area, one place where you can do correlations and prioritization. So that's what ASPM does.
Absolutely. You know, you were describing the mission of trying to create an environment that allowed developers to go fast and secure and get code out. And that really describes the whole platform engineering mission, if you will. You know, and for those who don't know, Checkmarx partners with us and the platformengineering.org community. On our platform engineering show, I actually did a roundtable webinar, I think last week, with some of the Checkmarx and other people. We get tremendous, the audience is so involved asking questions. They drive the whole thing. But it really is where the rubber's meeting the road right now. You mentioned AI as well, Sandeep. This whole show here, this here is AI. And I get it. Everyone wants to have, you know, it's, remember when the cloud came out? What's your cloud story? Every VC asks you, what's your cloud story? Today it's, what's your AI story? It's hard to stand out with 600 vendors on that floor, and they're all touting their AI. Talk to us about the Checkmark's AI strategy, if you will.
So our AI strategy is multifold. One, we are using AI and agentic products to redefine AppSec. The traditional way of doing AppSec was, like you said, the security people would look at the results, prioritize things, and then send it over to developers. Today, with agentic solutions, what we can do is take all those vulnerabilities, prioritize them, and allow developers with one click to be able to fix them. So our strategy is to have agents that are targeted at different personas. One agent targeted at the developer, another agent targeted at the AppSec administrator or the AppSec team that does the prioritization, sets the policies, sets policies across different projects and the like. And the third agent targeted at executives that want to look at application security from a risk perspective. And so we plan to have 3 such agents out in the market shortly. And so that's around what can we use AI to make AppSec a whole lot better, kind of redefine AppSec, if you may, on how it's used at an enterprise. And platform engineering becomes really important there because every enterprise that I'm talking to wants to move from DevOps to DevSecOps, and you can't do that without integrating this fully. So our agents will help further speed up the remediation of vulnerabilities, which is ultimately the goal of AppSec. The second part is a whole set of new vectors that get introduced because of AI, because of LLM. So we have our research team is doing a lot of work on what are the new threat vectors that come about because of AI, and this is things like prompt injection or hallucinations. How do we capture that? It's a lot of what Palo Alto bought in Protect AI.
Right.
We actually were partnering with them as well, but we
Really?
continue to have our own products on that. So it's both. It's twofold, if you may. So.
Absolutely. $700 million, that acquisition, a lot of money. But
Everyone needs the buzz. So.
by a lot of buzz for 700 million. But anyway, let me ask you another question though. Again, you've been in security, you're a successful multi-time CEO. Do you worry about what are we going to do? Will we have too many agents? Everybody has 2 agents, 3 agents, another agent here, there an agent, here an agent, everywhere an agent. How many is too many?
Yeah, I think the way to think about agents is they're really. I know agents are defined as really some things that are operating fully autonomously. I think that's a long ways off. In that I was talking to a CISO of a large bank yesterday, and he said, for security, we actually want agents that can help resolve things, but we don't want auto remediation. We want human intervention. So, like we were talking earlier, AI is one of those things which, it's not that AI will replace humans completely. AI will replace humans with humans that are enabled with AI. Right? Or AI-enabled humans will replace humans, not that AI will replace humans. And we think of it that way. Our developer-focused agent, for example, will have the ability for human intervention, where we think of it as you can do auto remediation. At some point, you might be comfortable enough to be able to do that for a certain class of vulnerabilities, but for a different class of vulnerabilities, for the more critical ones, people would want some human intervention to have some oversight on it. To your question of too many agents, well, we'll see how these go. Some of these agents are just AI washing. They're not really a whole lot different than what people have had before. They're presented in a different way. So I think there might be a little bit of overhyping, if you may. But the other aspect is that with MCP and A2A, you will have agents talking to each other, and what every enterprise we talk to are just as worried about the governance
Yes.
around these agents, where you need auditability, you need traceability. Like the bank CISO I was talking to, he said one of the main things, one of the big things they need to be able to demonstrate to their regulators is not just that they don't have any vulnerabilities, but the ones that they discovered, how did they resolve them? How did they discover them? How did they resolve them? And is there a record of all of that? So, it's still evolving. I think it's really exciting, all the agentic stuff, where you're making it, I think of it as a dramatically simpler user interface, if you may, with a lot of intelligence built in.
Agreed. I think of them almost as ephemeral, right? Because they do a specific job, and when they're done doing that job, they go back into the box. You know what I mean? But I do think what you said about we will have humans empowered by AI, not humans replaced by AI.
Correct.
At least for as long as you and I are going to be involved. Down the road, maybe different, but
Yeah.
who knows?
I mean, if you take even code, the quintessential use case of using coding agents, even there, the most powerful coding agents are the ones where they assist humans and humans are involved. You're not having people write things automatically without any human oversight.
Absolutely. There's one last area I want to talk return to check marks. So you've got the Checkmarks One platform. Got so much going on. AppSec is such a dynamic market right now. For our audience out here, what do you think over the next year? We'll sit down we're going to sit down in a month or two, but not in person. But for the next year, what should we focus on? Where should the focus be?
So the trend I see in AppSec is really what we talked about earlier, which is how do we, every enterprise I'm talking to is looking at consolidating their functions, consolidating their AppSec vendors, and I think this year is going to further accelerate that with agents that are sitting over all of these engines. I think it further accelerates that. The other aspect is people really want to get the shift left move. It's not yet fully happened. There's still large enterprises that are trying to embed security into the development workflow, and I think we'll continue to see that. So at Checkmarks, we continue to focus on the developer experience, continue to drive functionality across the platform. Like we've added secrets, we've added containers, we've added DAST, to really make it completely comprehensive. So there's only one. I don't think there'll be a consolidation of all security platforms, as you were talking about, where Palo Alto buys up everything from code to cloud. But we are very focused on AppSec and being the best enterprise solution for AppSec. And that's what we are focused on. That's what we hear from customers that they want, especially the larger enterprises that have complex environments. So that's what we are focused on.
I love it. Checkmarks.com.
Yes, checkmarks.com.
CheckMarx.com. Sandeep, a pleasure.
Okay.
One of the great gentlemen in the Valley here, if you ever get a chance to meet him in person. We're live. Thank you. We're live here at RSA. We'll be back in a moment with more coverage. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV's live coverage of RSAC from San Francisco, Moscone West. We are in Broadcast Alley. This is our 10th year covering RSAC, and this is where the best of the best experts in cybersecurity and AI are this week. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm very excited for this next conversation. Sol Rashidi is here. She is the CEO and founder of Executive AI, and you do so many things, Sol. Great to have you on Techstrong TV. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to brag on you a bit because I LinkedIn stalked you.
Okay.
You have 10 patents.
I do. Working on the 11th one right now.
You're a best-selling author. You're a top 50 women in tech. I love that. I get goosebumps. And this is awesome. Forbes AI Maverick of the 21st century? You're literally a maverick.
I've been lucky. Far from it. I think with the pace of change and how everything's going from, we're all just barely keeping up.
I know.
But I was fortunate enough to get a few labels and titles along the way.
Well, that's fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about Executive AI. You are the founder. You're the managing director. This is a consulting practice?
So it was interesting because it happened completely by accident. I've always been a C-suite, a part of really amazing Fortune 100 companies, like some of the largest firms that you've ever even heard of. Like I've always represented them as the chief data officer, chief data and analytics officer. I was the enterprise's first chief AI officer, appointed back in 2016.
Okay.
So I've always served these companies, and I've always been brought in to build the capabilities, scale the capabilities. And so that's kind of where a lot of my practitioner experience came from. And then I left enterprise, and I discovered that, I helped IBM launch Watson back in 2011.
Wow.
And so from like 11 to 2015, my job was to fly around the world, work with these enterprises, help them establish their AI strategy, their use cases, and help them deploy. No different than how everyone started in 2023. So I'm just watching the world kind of go, I'm like, yeah, we did this and we made that mistake, and we did this and we made that mistake. But no one's calling out their mistakes. No one's calling out the lessons learned. And
They're so valuable.
I always say you learn from the mistakes.
Absolutely.
And so, fail forward, fail fast, but
Yes.
you learn. So why should people have to go through and repeat what a slew of us, quite frankly, went through nearly more than a decade ago?
Yes.
So Executive AI was created because I think there's a lot of C-suite executives. I think there's a lot of leaders. I think there's a lot of companies that are learning and earning, meaning they're learning on the fly.
Right.
But they don't necessarily understand what the bottlenecks are. And I say in the world of AI, you've got data, infrastructure, and talent. Infrastructure is all the tech stacks, the tools. It's not about GPUs and CPUs and workloads. We've solved that. Data security is a major hurdle right now.
Absolutely.
And then talent preparation, because the way we're going to market with artificial intelligence, and I saw this back in 2012 and 13, it's we're going to do AI to increase productivity and capacity, which by default means we can run leaner. And that is never the case. So the goal isn't to increase capacity so you can displace employees. The entire intention is how do you give them time to reflect and realign on the bigger business problems. So it was supposed to be kind of a side hustle so that I could actually help other organizations go through workforce preparation and data security that then turned into kind of a thing of its own.
I love that. Sometimes serendipity, right?
Yeah.
I love your mission. I identified this as a marketer. I was telling you before we went live, your mission about bridging the gap between the technical folks, the non-technical worlds, helping pivot from this massive AI hype that we're still kind of in.
Yeah.
But now it's time to talk about AI results. Share a little bit more about your mission. Why is that so important to you?
It's interesting because for those of us that are in this space, we're knee deep into it. And you hear about all the amazing startups and what they're doing, and you hear about all the tech companies that we're doing. But we're missing the point because there's an entire ecosystem around us. Most of the, if not all of the Fortune 500s, they're not tech native.
No.
They use technology as an enabler, but they're not tech native.
Right.
So everyone is constantly in defense versus in offense. Everyone is reacting versus responding.
Yes.
And they're just trying to catch up.
Yes.
And so I think that's where the bridge really exists is we're in this space and we kind of understand it. We kind of geek out on our own things. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter what amazing tools and tech we build, unless there's true adoption.
Yeah.
Nothing we do is ever going to scale. And the adopters happen to be the non-tech native, the non-digitally native individuals. So I always like to say that I'm just a glorified translator. And oddly enough, my first job out of school, I used to be a professional rugby player. And then I was like, okay, time to grow up.
Wow.
I need to get paid for a living so I'm not sleeping on futons and
Yeah.
eating ramen noodles. And so I became a data engineer. And 6 months in, my boss came to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting fired. I thought I was getting fired because he said, "Sol, you're never allowed to touch a lick of production code ever again. You can hack your way through things, but you cannot write production-ready code." He said, "But for some reason, you like the business, you get along with the business, and you know how to build relationships. So your job is to talk to them, figure it out, what it is that they need, translate it to us, because you know our world. We're going to build it, and then you're going to go back to them." Because what was happening is the business would say they would need one thing, they would build it, only to find out that's not what they meant.
Right.
So I thought, I was like, oh, well, I'm not getting fired, but I'm totally getting demoted. But it turned out that playing this translator between the business side and the technical side turned out to be a really, really critical asset, because most of my positions, it's not because I'm the smartest person in the room, it's because I'm the only one that understands both sides of the house.
You are the
and I
bridge.
can find the common ground. So the bridge.
You are the bridge. What is that like culturally because when we talk about like DevSecOps and the developers and security, and there's a lot of commonalities that they have, but they struggle to collaborate. How do you see the technical folks collaborating and cohabitating with the non-technical folks? What some of the magic that you've seen happen, and what's essential for that cohabitation?
Yeah. I would say what's essential for that cohabitation is if our technical folks who have tremendous IQ also put just as much emphasis on their EQ, their BQ, and their SQ. You know, I would say the first big faux pas and mistake I made in my first C-suite role was I leaned and overleaned into my IQ. Well, they clearly put me in this position because they thought I was smart enough to have the C-suite position.
Right.
But I learned that my IQ actually wasn't going to help me evangelize or scale or help build critical mass in the things that we were building. It was my EQ, my ability to read the room and the groups and the teams to understand what they were afraid of or why they were pushing back and resisting so much. Or my BQ, the ability to translate our terms and terminologies and taxonomies and lexicon of language into their language, which we don't do in our world very, very well. And then the SQ. At the end of the day, people still believe into people. They still buy from people.
Right.
And so my running joke was at one of my employers, I went to more happy hours than I could even care for. But it built the trust.
Yes.
And so I would have one-on-ones with these executives, these presidents and CEOs, and saying, listen, I don't get it. I don't understand it, but you do, and I trust you. So I'm going to give you a few of my resources. Go pilot this. And then quite frankly, if the response is well, then we'll evangelize and scale it. So it was like, that's all it took.
Yeah.
And so what I always like to say is, technology can scale efficiencies, but relationships are what scale the opportunities.
Absolutely.
And that's not something we really lean in onto sometimes because we just kind of like geeking out on the tools.
Yeah. We do, but you bring up such a great point that so much of this, even in the age of AI, the era of AI, is relationship based.
It still is.
And which I like that, because there are soft skills like empathy, for example. You talked about EQ, curiosity, the ability to bridge gaps that are so vital to every role that some of them aren't trainable. You're born with it, right?
Yeah. But you can develop it.
Okay.
Like if you put a conscious effort.
Yeah.
Naturally, I was always hired to be a bit of a change agent, to build capabilities that didn't exist before. And I was in travel and entertainment. I was in music. I was in pharmaceuticals. I was in consumer products. Well, consumer products, travel and entertainment, and media and like music industry, they're very, very creative spaces. Mm-hmm. And so I was always like, well, we're building the amazing things. You should use it. You've been asking for this.
Yeah.
But it never really cracked the nut. And then it was storytelling helps, learning their language helps.
Right.
But then I realized that a lot of this is just fear-based and habits. So I'll never forget this, but we went to a leadership conference in one of my, the CDO role that I was serving for this company. And I was getting massive resistance, even though what I thought we were building was amazing. And so they had me speak on stage, and I said, listen, I'm not here to replace your intuition. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to replace your experience. And I'm not here to replace your relationships. But you have questions and you're frustrated at getting those answers. So my job is to make sure that you have those insights and those data points right when you need them, so that you could make those bigger business decisions. So don't view me as a threat.
Yeah.
View me as your enabler and supporter, so that you could lean in more on your relationships and experiences. But the data points that you need, you're not getting frustrated because you have to wait days, if not weeks, to be able to get them. So I'm here to support you. So consider me a stool. You're here to step on me so that you could elevate your performance and your team's performance.
Yep.
And I know my function. It is here to serve you.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing because the presidents of the divisions and the heads of like the different functional areas, they pause. Everyone stopped looking at their phone or doing whatever they were. And then they were just kind of baffled. And then the week later, all the one-on-ones I had requested were now accepted.
Nice.
I was getting the executive assistant saying, hey, Matt wants to talk to you. Hey, that thing that you said really resonated. There's some ideas we wanted. Then I started getting invited to the leadership calls. And so the goal isn't about threatening or displacing. It's about elevating those that create magic.
That's a great
And I
word,
do
elevating.
think that's what we technologists do.
How do you advise prospective leaders to go from that practitioner role to leadership?
Yeah.
I imagine the languages are very different.
They're very different.
Yes.
You know, I moderated a panel yesterday, which was amazing. We had the CISO of Meta, we had the CISO of OpenAI, we had the CISO of Anthropic. Like, those are my rock stars,
Yes,
right? Like
me
in the
too,
80s, it was
me
like
too.
Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, but
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh,
Yep.
it's Matt,
I'm with
Jason,
you.
like, yeah. And they were on a panel, and I asked them a very question, and it was interesting to see everyone's responses.
Yeah.
But the one thing that they had in common was they never lost their practitioner skill, but they learned how to lead and manage. Because practitioners, we love geeking out, we love going deep. We're kind of hard to manage. We're kind of anarchists. We love our bubble and we want to stay in it. But when you learn to manage and lead, and I made so many mistakes, and I have to apologize to a lot of people who reported into me earlier on. I was learning and earning at the same time. My leadership style is so different than the way it was.
Good for you.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You got to learn how to work with people, and not just the people that you manage.
Yeah.
Also your peers.
Yes.
Also the people above you. Like, it's kind of like if you're at the middle of this vector, you've got arrows going and all.
Yes.
You've got to be a compass of influence.
Compass
And
of
that
influence. I
takes
love
a
that.
lot of energy and effort.
Yes.
It's draining.
It is.
But if you can do it well, you could leapfrog forward.
What is a time frame that you've normally seen practitioners being able to take on the education of management, of leadership? This is not, I imagine, an overnight process, because there's behavioral changes that have to happen. And as people, change is hard.
Change is very hard. It depends. If you're in a startup, you can do it as early as your late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
Chief product officers, chief revenue officers, head of DevOps in startups. Like, I've met anywhere from like 26 to 34.
Yeah.
But you're an enterprise. The risk profile is a lot bigger.
Absolutely.
The teams are a lot larger. The revenues that are being questioned are a lot grander.
Yes.
And so there's an element of not only just practitioner maturity, but personality maturity that goes into it, that showcases you know how to navigate this world, and you're not going to throw a tantrum if you don't get your way.
What are some of the soft skills that are essential for this practitioner transformation?
Yeah. Business language.
Business language.
We can throw, like in the data space, we could talk about lineage and catalogs and enterprise data management and master data management,
Yep.
data security
Yep.
and InfoSec all day long. That does zero for the business. Zero. I don't even use my language in front of them.
Okay.
You know, my pitch is always like, aren't you frustrated that it takes months rather than minutes to be able to get the information you need? I'll fix that.
Yes.
But I'm going to need 6 months. I'm going to need X amount of dollars, and I'm going to need 2 people from your team because I need them to do X, Y, and Z. And you'll solve that problem in 4 to 5 months, and it'll be productionalized in 6. I won't even talk about how I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And then if I get asked, then I'm like, all right, let me break it down for you.
Sure.
And then I go into my language.
Yeah.
Usually they glaze over again. Okay, that's fine. I'll be your stakeholder. Here's the funding that you have approved. Here's the headcount you have approved. Go build.
What's one of your favorite stories of impact that you've made in an opportunity like what you just described?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm sure you have many.
I do. Okay. One of my favorite use cases for artificial intelligence is building what I call an augmented knowledge store for customer support. Whether you're in financial services or commercial banking, right? There's warranties, there's offers, there's so much to memorize. Or if you're in consumer products, there's a ton of product SKUs that you have to memorize. It is nearly impossible for anyone to go through and memorize, if they're even documented, by the way, in these manuals and PDFs, because new service and offerings and warranties, they're constantly being offered day in and day out. And so you're dealing with a group, customer support, that historically is not tech forward, not tech centric. They've often been with the company 20 plus years. There's a lot of fear and resistance towards new tech.
Sure.
But it also has the most like the easiest opportunity, because it takes 6 to 7 months to onboard a customer service rep, from getting to know the process, memorizing the products and services, shadowing a senior person, then actually attending calls and being shadowed. It's a long process.
Yeah.
That OpEx cost is massive.
Sure.
So one of my favorites was one of the companies I'd work with that I said, listen, why are we having our customer support reps memorizing 80,000 different SKUs?
Right.
The focus should be on answering the question as quickly as possible,
Right.
and giving assurance to the person who's calling in to complain, not on trying to recollect and going, I don't know, let me escalate, hold please, let me ask my manager. So it's the easiest and the most fun, and you get to see the aha moments in the customer service reps of creating this augmented knowledge store where they're like, which one of my products are vegan? Which one has this ingredient that's going to create an allergic reaction? And they'll get a list. So as the person calling in asks a question, they have this co-pilot next to them, not to be confused with Microsoft.
Sure.
But they have this assistant.
Yeah.
They type the questions, they get the immediate answers, and then they're able to answer and go, and by the way, I completely understand what you're going through. Let me make sure that my response is exhaustive, because even though this isn't a primary ingredient in our products, I want you to be aware of the other products that have it as a secondary and tertiary. That's building trust.
Absolutely.
And brands right now, trust is the biggest currency.
It's currency.
as we continue to grow.
Absolutely.
So easy, so responsive, and customer service reps, they don't have to understand
Yeah.
tech. They just have to know that they don't have to memorize everything.
They're empowered,
100%.
which every brand needs to have that. Last question for you.
Yeah.
Here we are at RSAC. The cybersecurity landscape changes
Yeah.
minute by minute,
Oh, yeah.
probably second by second. What encourages you about where we are in this AI era from a cybersecurity perspective?
Oh. I pause because, if truth be told, I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah.
I think we're still very much in a defensive posture
Yes.
versus being in an offensive posture.
Yes, agree.
I think there's still a lot that we don't know.
Yes.
Our surface area of exposure is not doubling or quadrupling, like it's beyond Moore's law, as we go from what we call artificial intelligence, but whether it's augmented intelligence or automated intelligence, into autonomous agents where the agents are going to be making the decisions. We're not there yet. I'll be very honest. We're talking about it, but by the time enterprise catches up, like the risk profile for that is very, very massive. There's a lot of steps that go into it, and folks aren't aware yet. Our surface area just gets vast.
Right.
And right now, earlier stats were saying that there was about 23%, if you talk about 2022, of attacks were cyber attacks. It's now gone up to 50%. But the stats are that by the mid 2026, most of those attacks, it's going to increase to 75%, are actually going to be machine to machine attacks, not human to machine attacks. And the detection levels needed for those is just a completely different ballgame. So we're going to have to rewrite the script fairly shortly.
Yeah. It's challenging to think about how to become proactive when there's still so much defense going on.
So much defense, and we're all behind. Like, it's impossible to keep up with the pace of change.
It's breakneck speed.
I know. I feel like I'm under a lake with a straw, like just trying to get gas a little bit.
A little bit of
oxygen.
air, yes.
And I'm in this space. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine what it's got to be like
Yeah.
if you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been so great having you on the program. Thank you for sharing what you're doing,
you.
how you're achieving that mission, how you are the bridge between the technical, the non-technical, and really helping organizations pivot from this AI hype to AI reality. We so appreciate your insights and your time on Techstrong.
Thank you so much.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Rasul Rashidi, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV live from the show floor of RSAC in Broadcast Alley. We'll be back after a short break, so we'll see you soon.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Laurent Gill, who's president of Cast AI, and they just recorded $108 million in additional finance. And I guess we're going to dive into what's driving that. But Laurent, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
All right. Even in the age of AI, where people are getting funding in the multi-billions of kind of era, $100 million is still nothing to sneeze at. So, what, is the plan for this? Where are we going to go from here? What's left to be done?
Oh, Mike, we have a lot in store. So what is really cool is the investors who who joined that race are SoftBank and G2 Venture. SoftBank is very famous to invest a lot in the AI space, as I'm sure you know, and G2 has done a lot of pioneering investment as well. They invested in a company called Crusoe, who happened to be a Stargate partner of SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle. So there's a lot of things that will come from this. These guys are trusting us to bring the AI industry to the next space, and I can't wait to show that to you.
So where are people on this journey right now? I mean, I feel like we've been talking about automation of infrastructure, Kubernetes, and all kinds of stuff for a long time now. Um, how far are people gotten down this path? Because I feel like, depending on who I talk to, they're still kind of all over the place.
Oh yeah, it's still all over the place. But there's a few things that happen to us. So, and we see a very large amount of the industry. We're probably the kind of dominant player now in the Kubernetes automation space. So we have a lot of customers, a lot of users of the product. We see some very, very strong trends. One of them is that almost all the Fortune 500 that are using Cast AI are using Cast AI to run GPU workload, not for training, but for inference. And we start to see the beginning of this. Why I mention this is because inference is what we were all waiting for. You know, training, there is 5-6 companies in the planet. Some we are very close with from our investors, but that's it. There's Mistral, great company, OpenAI, fantastic, and many others. What is exciting to me now is to see how these companies, like BMW is a client, are using those LLM to do some real business. And we see this happening because they run on Cast AI. A lot of those workloads run on Cast AI. In fact, one of the largest AI company in the planet is entirely running on Cast AI. And so we see this visibility, we see this workload, we see so many opportunity to make those things better thanks to automation. That's what's happening now. And to finish on this, we also see a lot more Fortune 500 being inside Kubernetes. So they have moved, or they are still moving. They're in their journey of transition between monolithic VM-based application to containers, whether it's on-prem or on the cloud. We see that migration has accelerated in 2024. What is interesting now is all of those applications benefit tremendously from efficiency and automation, from what we can see from our angle.
Has the rise of AI, which is dependent upon GPUs, and most of those applications seem to be running on Kubernetes, kind of made people a little more sensitive to costs in general, and they're trying to get higher utilization rates? Because frankly, we kind of ignored utilization rates for as long as I can remember.
Yes, the same thing for GPUs. So I'll tell you what we see now in the marketplace. So the issue with GPU is that the hype is very strong. Because the hype is strong, a lot of companies are rushing to buy GPUs in advance. Sometimes we see companies buying 1 year or 3 years in advance. It's called reserve instance on the cloud of GPU. Expensive GPU, I'm talking H100, A100, on all the 3 cloud providers. What we start to realize now, and what our users are realizing now, is there are much better way to identify GPUs and have them when you need them. That information is public. You can browse the hyperscalers. They will tell you, they will give you a kind of good way of thinking, oh, this region has availability for A100. Oh, this one has some H100. But because us human, we only maybe do it once a month or once every few months, we're going to miss entirely the picture of availability. And for GPU, cost and availability goes really together. You have to find them. And once you have them, you have to use them. That's what we fix. That's what we solve. Our automation, our AI agent is so aware of where all these machines are. But not just that, we know how much they cost. We know how much quantity of compute they provide. So we're able to choose the right type for the right job. And we can even find spot instance on the hardest to find GPUs. And Mike, we published a report a few weeks ago. We made a simulation of the following. If you were agile means you would be able to move inference around based on availability and performance. Then in 2024, you would have spent between 10 times and 3 times less in GPU workload, as opposed to if you didn't know where they are and if you could not move around. Sometimes US East has the best price, but it may happen for a month. But the second month may be US West. Maybe it's going to be Europe and Frankfurt. Maybe it goes to Asia. You see, the beauty of what we do is we build an engine, an AI agent, that mirrors exactly what the human would do, the DevOps engineer would do, except that our agent doesn't do that cycle once or twice a month. It does it every second. So it's able to move things around and adjust and make it more efficient and make sure that what you have is what you need, nothing less, but not too much above it. And when you do this, when you mirror the DevOps workload, but you make it every second with something that is obsessed with efficiency, then you get this kind of result. And let me tell you, Mike, we have a lot of Fortune 500 on the platform. When we show these to our users, it's the difference between a science experiment and something in production. When you show this kind of efficiency of 3x, 4x, 5x lower than the average cost on any hyperscaler, then suddenly you see the light bulb with our users saying, oh, I can do it now. Because now there is a return of investment to use LLM for my chatbot, for my Gen AI application. That's what we see. And that's what SoftBank see, and that's what G2 see. And that's why they invested in us.
I feel like there's a cultural aspect to this, and kind of comes down to developers, they have a bias towards not getting called at 3 o'clock in the morning, so they'll over provision as much as they can. And we haven't really kind of put any guardrails around that whole issue. And the end result is utilization rates are kind of abysmal. It's one of the dirty secrets of IT. And then CFOs scratch their head and say, how come everything's so expensive? But is there something we need to do, or a conversation we need to have with the developers who, at least theoretically, are supposed to be building modern applications that dynamically scale up and down, but don't?
You really speak of the dilemma. That's the key, what you said. It's a debate between, do I do it myself and I control it, or do I trust automation to do it? The way we talk about it with our client is the following. In a few minutes, you're going to see the result, the impact. It's instant. But look, like, it's instant because it would be instant if you would do it yourself as well. Except it's not someone, it's an entity does it so fast that it turns on every possible aspect of making this more efficient. It's so fast that I call it irresistible. Like think about it. You turn on something and your productivity increased by 10%. Say 10%, I need to do some work for that. It's not worth it. When you show 50%, 60% impact, it's irresistible. There's no more debate. You know what they say? How soon can we extend this everywhere? It's because the value is so deep, so hard, so impactful and substantial. Why is it substantial? Because it's the difference between you do it yourself and you have something that would have done the same thing you would, but did it so fast using all the possibilities that the arsenal of tools that the hyperscaler will give you. And that's the breakthrough. That's the irresistible impact of CastAI. That's why the Fortune 500 are all there. Like, most of our clients now are these large enterprises. And you would have argued, well, they're probably the one moving carefully. Let's call it this way. But when you show this, like, we had a stock exchange, the cost of goods sold dropped by 40%. A stock exchange, 40%. That's it. There's no need for, oh, do you want to keep it? Or do you want to go back to trying to do it yourself with the screwdrivers? That's the philosophy.
So do we do this, to your point, at the top end of the food chain where it's some sort of command and control system, or do we really just need to kind of put the costs in front of the developers and the data scientists in a way that they can easily see? Because a lot of them would say, I have no idea what the costs are, so I'm just trying to execute the mission.
It's a great question, but no, and I'll tell you why. Because we're already beyond this. We are not, you see, we're not the FinOps tool. We're not telling you where you spend money. Of course, when we reduce your cost, we need to show you what you are spending before. So yes, that piece we have, of course. But what we do is we give you confidence that whatever you are spending is just right. It's a right amount. This is the impact of automation. We're not here to give recommendations. Our agent is actively fixing things. And Mike, one thing, people believe, oh, great, so you will eliminate over provisioning. That's fantastic. But not always. We made a study last year in 2024, and we realized the following. Look, listen to this, it's mind-blowing. 6% of your containers, on average, are going to run out of memory in the last 24 hours. 6%. The rest, they are over-provisioned 5 times, 5x. But 6% of those, it's actually not the case, it's the opposite. It's statistically relevant, right? This is on millions of CPUs, thousands of users. 6% of what you have is going to run out of memory. You know what happens when they run out of memory? They break. If you check in, you may have to check in again. It breaks, the application reboot, restart. You cannot make up memory. You can have something slow, that's CPU, but you cannot make up memory. It breaks, it restarts. We fix that. You see how deep that is? With automation, with, let's call it a smart engine. The smart engine is obsessed to be sure that whatever you need is what you have. Sometimes you don't have enough. We fix that. Most of the time you have too many. We fix that too. That is the beauty of automation. When you show this to users, when they realize, when our partners, DevOps partners realize this, there's no more discussion about automation, no automation, being in control. It's so much better than what you can do yourself. And then just to finish on it, because we worked a lot on this, you are always in control. That's the most important for us. We built this tool for the DevOps engineer, for the application owners and the DevOps engineers. They're in control. They can say, this I want, this one I don't want, this one I want to be more aggressive, this one add padding, because I'm more comfortable when you do that. So you think, as a DevOps engineer, you become an analyst. You describe how you want this to be, and then you just watch it.
Have you seen the mood among customers change in the wake of the current level of economic uncertainty that we're all seeing? Or are they kind of making some assumptions about maybe not even being able to get additional hardware? So they're trying to think through, how do I increase the utilization rates of what I got?
Yeah, we see a lot of increase of utilization rate. That's a lot of discussion we have with our client, but we see also a lot of expansion in what we do. So recently a very large car manufacturer in Europe went on board, and they just put one of their applications. They have thousands of them. They put 1 or 2 applications, tiny things. What we see last month, so they are customers since December. What we saw in early March, they call us back and they say, hey, we are ready. They were ready for what? Oh, we are ready to put everything we can, because now we have pressure. We've seen how efficient you are. We need everything to be efficient as soon as possible. So we see a lot of acceleration that way, acceleration of adoption of automation, because the impact is so important. And right now it's so important.
So as you kind of work through this, what's your best advice to organizations, short of course, getting your platform, but is there something they should be thinking about, how they structure themselves or function in this environment today? Or because, AI is new to everybody, the economy is different, a lot of the ways I used to think about infrastructure need to change.
I don't like when people say, oh, everything is getting increasingly complex, increasingly expensive, increasingly. No, it's very easy. It's very simple. There's nothing complicated. Think of what you do once a month or twice a month. Think now that you have a colleague. You tell the colleague what to do. It's an AI agent. You tell the colleague, it really is like this, by the way. You really do that. You tell a colleague what to do, and you ask the colleague, can you please do it for me? Oh, and do it all the time, in real time, constantly, continuously. That's what we give advice to teams. Say, don't worry. You are always in control. You decide how you want your team to behave. The same way as you hire someone, you're going to train that person into joining your team. It's exactly this. There's no difference for an AI agent, except the AI agent will take no holiday, no lunch, no breakfast, work 24/7 at nights and weekends, because you tell the agent to do it that way. So there is, when you explain it this way, there is no fear. There's no, oh, but I don't know. No, you know, because you're the one teaching, training, asking the agent to help you. You know, Mike, when we look at the workload, imagine this is a container, and this container is supposed to use 2 CPUs. And you realize that container use only 0.1. It should be that size. And no, that size. You know that. As a human, I can see it with my eyes. You use Datadog, you use Dynatrace. Great observability product. They will tell you this. But what do you do when you have 10,000 of those? You say, they're just too many. I'll do the important one. When you use automation AI agent, it will do it for all of them. In real time, sometimes it will become that. Sometimes it will increase to this. Wait, that's a fun. To this. Sometimes it will go back to the small airport. And so on. Sometimes it will disappear when it's not necessary. Sometimes it will ask to run on the GPU because it's required. Oh, other times it will take a small piece and move it around because you need to charge it. It really is that way. Mm-hmm. And when you see it, there's no more question. It's great.
Yeah. Folks, I think you heard it here. I mean, ultimately, the workloads, it's not so much complexity, it's just the entire environment's a little more dynamic than ever, and you're going to need a little help from some AI to get through that, but it can be done. Hey, Laurent?
And the AI is friendly. That's the point.
There you go. Hey, Laurent, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, back to you guys in the studio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV, live from day one of RSAC in San Francisco, California. I'm your host, Lisa Martin. We've had great conversations with leading cybersecurity experts all day. We've got a great lineup tomorrow and Wednesday, great guest on Thursday, so definitely continue watching. We appreciate your viewership. My next guest is no stranger to tech TV shows. My longtime friend and colleague, the Chief Marketing Officer of Infinidat, Eric Herzog. Eric, award-winning CMO. I lost count of how many awards you have. Have you? I did make you count the other day.
Yes, you did make me count the other day. It was around 30.
It's amazing. So Infinidat, storage. What is a storage company doing here at this premier cybersecurity event?
Well, storage is often overlooked by the CISO or the CIO.
Is it?
And it's not overlooked by cyber criminals. 90% or more of any enterprise's most valuable data is sitting on their enterprise storage. So if you don't do something, you're essentially not only putting on social media that you're going on vacation, you're not leaving the doors unlocked, you're leaving the doors and windows wide open with signs in your front yard that say, steal my valuable corporate data. So storage is often overlooked and it needs to be included in a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. And the cyber criminals know all the data flows, they watch all this stuff, it's all done surreptitiously. So they're constantly observing and making sure they know where the data is and what data they want to go after in order to hold it for ransom or malware, or if it's exfiltration, right, stealing the data to sell it to somebody else. So those are all areas where enterprise cyber storage needs to be front and center, and CISOs and CIOs and the CTOs need to understand that if you got 90% of your valuable data there, you might want to protect it.
Yeah. Might be a good thought. How are you seeing the CISO role evolve into understanding that very challenge that you just described? Is it evolving in the right way?
It's starting to. It's slow. A lot of people in the storage space are imbuing their products with cyber. For example, ours, InfiniSafe, the bulk of it is for free. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but when you buy our storage systems, you get the InfiniSafe technology, which, by the way, has won 2 awards here at the show.
Congratulations.
And you can turn it on. It's easy to use, and it's the ideal thing to help reduce the threat window. It integrates seamlessly with SIEM, SOAR, or if you've got a SOC. So it integrates into a wider data center portfolio so that it's not just storage on its own. And that's why we think that CISOs and the CTOs need to understand how much it is. And we have a number of our customers that use it. A lot of times it's been the storage guys who've gone to the CISO and said, by the way, did you know the storage we bought has InfiniSafe, which basically we got for free, and it does this, and then the CISO will go, wow. So CISOs need to just be more comprehensive in their view. They're always thinking about the edge, right? If you will, the moat and the walls of the castle.
Right.
They do think about the server farm and the networking. As you know, most of the major network vendors have security built in as well. The issue is storage guys do too, and we were one of the first to do that several years ago. And so now it's time for the CISOs to realize if you want to do it right, you need to include your enterprise storage as part of that comprehensive cybersecurity strategy.
It's a no-brainer, and it's not a nice to have anymore. It's an essential. I mean, here we are at RSAC, and all the stats on the trends in cybersecurity. It's no longer is it going to happen to us? It's when. It's how often. It's how much is it going to cost. So security cannot be an afterthought in anything, whether it's AppSec or storage. It has to be baked in from the beginning, don't you think?
Yeah, it absolutely needs to be front and center.
Yep.
I mean, it is in my world, it's a checkbox item.
Yeah.
Okay, there's all aspects of networking. Those are checkbox items. There's all kinds of aspects of enterprise storage that are checkbox items. Well, we would argue that if you don't have cybersecurity as a checkbox item in your enterprise storage, you are leaving yourselves incredibly vulnerable.
Oh,
to
yeah.
90% or more of your most valuable corporate enterprise data. That does not make logical sense.
No. Well, nobody wants to be the next headline. That's for sure. But are you finding that the sales cycle is getting a little bit easier as CISOs and CIOs are understanding the vast majority of our data is sitting on these storage systems? The doors are open. The sign, like you said, come on in, steal our data. Is that conversation getting easier?
Yeah, so we launched a new product last year called the InfiniBox G4. That's our storage array product. That's our new version. And I did a intro call, presenting under NDA with one of our existing customers, a global Fortune 200. And so as we're going along, I had a couple slides on InfiniSafe because we added some things to it. So the entire presentation was supposed to be 45 minutes. It ended up being an hour and a half. 45 minutes of it was when I showed the cyber slides. We need to know this, we need to know this, we need to know this, we need to know this. And that just was happenstance, right? We had a launch deck that included everything in the G4 portfolio that came out, which it had some slides on cyber, and it completely derailed the meeting in the right way. They then followed up with a 3-hour meeting dedicated with the more technical teams on what does InfiniSafe do, how does it work, how does it help reduce the threat window. We guarantee recovery times, for example. We guarantee, no matter how big the data is, and I'm talking it could be petabytes, recovery on primary storage of a minute or less.
Wow.
And in fact, we did a public webinar last quarter, and we recovered 4 petabytes in literally 4 seconds. I kid you not. And I'm such an old geezer, being almost 70 years old, that when we do demos, they're live. We don't pre-record anything.
No, I know you don't do that.
I don't believe in that, because if you can't do a demo live, then your product must not be very good.
Exactly.
So we do them all live. We did the same thing with a backup data set. We work with all the major backup vendors. It could be Veeam, Commvault, Veritas, IBM Protect, doesn't matter. In this case, it happened to be Veeam. 25.5 petabytes in 12 minutes.
Wow.
And no one else can do that. And
That's
we guarantee
amazing.
that in writing. It's a guaranteed
Do you
SLA.
really?
Yeah.
That's
all guaranteed.
outstanding. Because it's essential. I mean, there's no time to waste when an attack happens and it's discovered. There is no time to waste because it's brand trust, customers churn. It can be a brand nightmare. How do you bring the customers, as chief marketing officer, I know you're out with customers all the time. How do you bring them into the conversation and enable them to help develop the InfiniSafes and the technologies that you deliver?
So what we do is we actually lead with cyber number one, and AI number 2, although
Okay.
this is not an AI show. And the reason is that when you look at the CIO surveys of spend, both last year and this year, number 1 and number 2 was cybersecurity and AI. We happen to have solutions that are integrated with storage in both of those areas. And so we lead with those. And many times I lead with cyber first. And then I talk about AI as well. But it depends on who your audience is. If the CISO's there, you're all about cyber. And even with the CIO there, you talk about both, because those surveys from all the leading analyst firms, both last year and this year, are number 1 and number 2 spend plans from CIOs is cyber security and AI. And since we have storage that actually has both of those things, then we want to be considered as part of the thing. And it's a pretty easy discussion. We have an infamous scare me slide.
Yeah.
So
What does it entail?
well, for example, one of the security analyst firms estimates that the total cost of cybersecurity, which includes headcount, consulting, if you do have to pay, if you lose data, how you resurrect that because you have to bring it back, is around $10.5 trillion
I
for
saw
enterprise.
your LinkedIn post on that.
Yeah,
That's
10
just
and
in
a half.
2025, right?
Yeah, that's the 25 number, and that's not from a storage guy. That's for security guy. Now that's all in.
Yeah.
So that includes preventative stuff. That includes what you do when you have an attack. So, for example, in many of the areas of the world, such as the United States and Europe, publicly traded companies have to declare if they have a cyber attack.
Right.
So, for example, last year in Q1, one of the leading Fortune 50 companies had to post that they had to take a reserve of $1.9 billion. That was one company because of a cyber attack. So there's a lot of issues around it. There's a lot of expense. Don't just think paying the ransom.
Right.
You've got to recover the data.
Right.
You have to get a known good copy because ransomware is not King Kong. It's not Godzilla yelling and screaming. It is the ultimate Jason Bourne. As you remember, first Jason Bourne spy movie, he didn't even remember he was a spy. That's how
true.
good he was. So that's what cyber attacks and cyber criminals are all about.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to prevent. You've got to be able to recover. We would argue that the era is here of what we call next generation data protection. It's not just about how you back up the data anymore. It's the assumption, as you said, it's not if you'll be attacked, it's when and how often.
Yep.
The average enterprise, by the way, suffers 1,653 cyber attacks weekly.
Weekly.
Weekly. That's
How many
average.
are they? But how many are they detecting?
Well, that's the other thing. Are they detecting everything? They may or may not be
Probably not.
detecting everything.
Probably not.
So with all of those types of attacks, it's really critical they think about what's the next generation. That next generation includes being able to recover any data set size of your primary storage in under a minute or less, guaranteed.
Right.
Or with backup storage, be able to recover it in 20 minutes or less, guaranteed. And so how do you recover? How do you get a known good copy? And part of what we do with InfiniSafe touches all those areas. How we do to help reduce the threat window. For example, when Microsoft Sentinel or Splunk or IBM create our season attack, we actually can have it talk to our storage and automatically start doing things. Not pick up the phone, not text, not WhatsApp, none of that. Automatically through APIs have that software, data center-wide cybersecurity software, or the SOC, talk to our storage and start executing things to help reduce that threat window. That is modern, next generation data protection that does things that no one's been doing in the past.
So from a differentiation perspective, when you're standing on your Infininet soapbox with your Infininet pin, what are, because the guarantees, I've not heard that. I've heard some guarantees, not to the extent that you're talking about. So I imagine that's a massive differentiator when you're doing marketing or when sales are in accounts, being able to show them the proof in the pudding and saying, we're putting our reputation on the line here.
Absolutely. And again, while they're recorded now, when people get on those webinars or see us at seminars or other things, when we're standing in the booth, those demos are live.
Yeah.
We don't fart around.
Yeah.
We just do not do things. We're old-fashioned, but you know what? Where's the beef from that old Windsor? Where is
That's right.
the beef?
Good old 80s.
And again,
Yeah.
really, I would argue that everyone in IT is from Missouri, the show me state.
Yep.
So we show.
Good.
We don't video, we show,
Yeah.
and we show live. So it helps a lot. Helps a lot. Obviously, we're a high-end enterprise. We don't do entry or mid-range storage.
Okay.
So our average sales cycle is 9 to 12 months anyway.
Okay.
Independent of the cyber angle or the AI angle, which we have as well. And we make sure that we emphasize those values. Remember, those are not really technical values, they're business values.
Sure.
If you can avoid having to file a $1.9 billion filing with the US SEC that you had a cyber attack because you're leveraging InfiniSafe, that has value, not only of the 1.9 billion,
Yeah.
but obviously your name is all over the news
Oh, yeah.
because it's public. And if you're in the global Fortune 2000-ish, that matters, right?
Well, nobody can afford to be that next headline, as I mentioned, because it's brand reputation. A brand can be destroyed in the matter of minutes. So nobody has this luxury of going, we'll do security, maybe later. We'll do it in these different patches. No, it's got to be comprehensive across the entire enterprise.
Absolutely. And when you think about what they do right now, the edge. Is there a wall to their castle? Abso-frickin-lutely. Is there a moat? And is a moat probably filled with alligators, crocodiles, and piranha? Abso-frickin-lutely.
Yep.
But you know what? Last time I saw Robin Hood on TV, Robin Hood got through all that stuff. So guess what? Cyber criminals will.
Yes.
You've got to be able to chase them down. You've got to recover a good data set. All that is critical stuff that you need to be able to do. And that's something that, next generation data protection that we do with our InfiniSafe technology at Infinidat is what you need to do to make sure that you are protecting your most valuable data. And again, 90% or better of it is sitting on your enterprise storage. So why leave it exposed? Why leave the door open? Why have a sign saying, come steal my stuff, right? You don't want to do that.
How has AI, you talked about the AI angle, and we're in this AI era. Ever since ChatGPT was born, everybody's AI. Can't go to a conference without talking about it. But how does it change the game for the better from a cybersecurity storage perspective? Is this an advantage?
So sure, absolutely. We have a technology called InfiniSafe Cyber Detection. It's award-winning, of course. And what it does is it scans data sets, whether that be a snapshot, volume, databases. It scans for anomalous behavior using AI and ML technology. So, and it learns through AI. So if there's the Lisa malware, and now there's another malware that kind of looks similar to Lisa, it can learn that, oh wait, it's got the same attributes, but that might be malware. And then as it continues to learn, it can identify and then alert.
Okay.
And again, that alert through our InfiniSafe Cyber Detection can be tied to pushing data and pushing that information actually over to the cybersecurity side.
Okay.
So in short, not only can storage be a way to recover with our InfiniSafe Cyber Detection, to have that rapid recovery that we guarantee, but also be used as the storage early warning system that can communicate with the data center-wide cybersecurity packages. So that's one of the values of leveraging AI and ML in a cyber storage environment for both resiliency and for recovery.
Huge value add there. Last question I want to touch on. I know that another, you mentioned award. I have it in here somewhere. Infinidat, I just saw this on LinkedIn, made the CRN Storage 100 list in the software-defined storage category for the 6th year in a row. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Over 90% of your solutions are delivered with global channel partners. Talk a little bit about that in our final minutes and how that channel partner program is really enabling customers to become resilient.
So we make sure that the partners are an extension of our sales force. Yeah. They don't just fulfill. And at some companies, they say they use a channel, but the bulk of the revenue, having worked at 2 global Fortune 500 storage companies in the past, it was mostly fulfillment. We don't do that. So we co-sell with all the accounts. We have global Fortune 500s that we brought to our partner base, global Fortune 500s that the partners have brought to us, and then we work that transaction together. So we make sure we have a whole training program, both for the sales team and for the system architects and solutions engineers of our partners, that gives them a technical background and a sales background of figuring out what they need to do to sell our technology in all areas, including cyber, but AI, generic high-end enterprise storage. What does that mean? How do we deliver both CapEx and OpEx savings? But we have a program called the Enthusiast Program. That's a global program for our partner base that we rolled out about 2 years ago now, and it's a mandatory thing once you sign up with us that you've got to have employees that get certified both on the technical side and on the sales
side as well. Last question I have one more for you. Since you're always out with customers, what's your favorite customer story? Maybe it's with a partner or maybe it's direct that you think really just shines a light on the value that Infinidat is delivering, those guarantees coming to life. What's your favorite story?
So we were presenting at a trade show and we did a panel. So the panel included one of our global channel partners and 4 end users, and me. I was the moderator. So as we're talking about, it happens to be on InfiniSafe, by the way, the partner was talking about how there's 27 common customers. All of them are global global Fortune 2000, not all Fortune 500, but definitely in the Fortune 2000, and that all of them were using InfiniSafe, all of them. And part of what he's talked about is that they happen to have a cybersecurity practice. And that cybersecurity practice is independent of storage because they sell cybersecurity packages like Splunk and Microsoft Sentinel QRadar. They have that as a separate business. So what he talked about was how they've basically made sure that the storage guys understand enough about cyber to identify an opportunity, and the same thing with the cyber guys. And so it was a great story. It involves a partner, 27 different end users, all in the Fortune 2000, all leveraging InfiniSafe to help protect their data, shrink that threat window, and get to the next generation of data protection.
All about shrinking that threat window. Eric, thank you so much for joining me on. Welcome to your first Techstrong TV show. We appreciate your insights. Great work that Infinidat is doing. I'll have to check out the booth in the next couple of days.
Great. Well, thank you. And anyone who's here at the RSA show, we are in Moscone Hall North, 5172. So please stop by. We'd love to talk to you about how you can protect your data better and how you can make sure that the cyber criminals don't steal it, don't destroy it, and don't wreak havoc with your business.
Absolutely. Again, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We appreciate it. For Eric Herzog, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching day one of Techstrong TV coverage from RSAC. We've had a great day. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. I've got some great co-anchors. Alan Schimmel's going to be here, Mitch Ashley, I think some other celebrities that you'll see. Lots of great content coming at you over the next 3 days. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.